Can you all hear me? All right. Okay. So again, my name is Doug Plata. I'm an urgent care physician. I actually had a shift earlier today, so I was rushing through traffic to be here. And I guess if you time it right, LA traffic is not too bad. So I timed it right now, but I know going forward it's going to be a mess. So, okay, so Starship, SpaceX Starship, Moon or Mars rocket, and I'm the president and founder of the Space Development Network. I would like to encourage you guys to go and visit the website, developspace.info, and check out all the goodies there. I'll pause as you guys take pictures. All right. Okay, so just an overview. I'd like to go ahead and review with you. You guys have probably all have seen this before, but review Elon's vision for Starship as it's played itself out over the last 4 years. And then I'm going to give you 5 numbers to contemplate, all right? And then I'm going to go ahead and give you a surprising quote, and I want to find out, sort of show of hands, who here knows who made that comment. And then who addressed, basically, what are the different categories of people that would want to use the Starship to go to the moon. We'll also deal with Mars, but then really take a look at how can Mars be made an attractive destination for Starship. You might find that an interesting point, but by the end you'll understand why I'm asking that. Okay? But before I go on, is anybody here from British Columbia? No. Somebody's try to get a hold of me. I don't have a way to get a hold of them. So, okay, let's go ahead and discuss Elon's vision. All right, do you remember Guadalajara, the crazy question and answer session there? In which Elon really formally, for the first time, he laid out what he was calling at that time the interplanetary transport system, with sort of those 3 stubby, they're not wings, but whatever they are, appendages. So that's where he first laid it out. And what was the destination goal for Starship? Mars, right? He wants to settle Mars. He wants to back up humanity, give humanity a great future, and something to look forward to wake up for in the morning. And interplanetary transport system was his idea at that time. Well, it's evolved. The next year in Adelaide in Australia, he did another presentation. Now he's sort of reverting to the BFR, and the shape sort of changed. It has the 2 sort of delta wings at the back, and then the next year, do you remember this? What's the Japanese name? Yes, exactly. I was going to attempt to try to say it, but I'm sure I'd butcher it, so I'm just going to leave it. He's the very wealthy Japanese guy. He has like a clothing line. I think you can give measurements and get exactly your fit. And as it turns out, do you know where SpaceX has got its money this last 12 months to go ahead and develop the Starship? It's his money. This is the guy who is really making it happen. To a large extent, it's his money, is my understanding. So Elon, I think he has the same name, BFR. However, now it's got these not the 2 delta wings in the back, but now he's really getting into the skydiver sort of appendages concept, but also with a 3rd equal size tail, basically as to land on. All right, and then the big one happened recently, Boca Chica. Okay, and wouldn't you know, he's got it's unbelievable, isn't it? He's got actually a constructed Starship Mark I, okay? And he says in 6 months they're going to try to do an orbital shot. It's crazy, crazy. Snap, yes. What is the destination for the Starship? It's Mars. I mean, this is his vision since college, to large, like million population city on Mars, to get humanity's eggs in 2 baskets. Okay, so it's a Mars ship, right? Okay, but what his vision is for a stepwise growth of basically city on Mars. Okay, and this is actually sort of an animated GIF screenshot from his presentation, showing just concept for that. Okay, but what about the moon? Who has ambitions to go to the moon? Quite a few people, actually. Okay, does NASA want to go to the moon? Does NASA say that it wants to go to the moon? Yes. Okay. Brighton Stein clearly, you know, he's has long been intrigued with the ice at the poles. He definitely says wants to go to the moon. He has given it a name, Artemis. Okay, and I think it's going to be the Starship, not that thing, but that's my opinion. And then Artemis was in Greek mythology the twin sister of Apollo. So the first woman on the moon, I think, would clearly be a very historic and very memorable sort of event. Okay. So my point is that if NASA was given a way to go to the moon via Starship, I think they would go for it. They would take it if it's available, and I think it would be. How about other nations of the world? I don't know if you guys really thought of this, but these are the countries who have had astronauts in space, on the Mir or on the International Space Station, all of these countries. I think it sort of shows that if a country can get an astronaut up there, if they can afford it or if they have contacts through the countries to do it, then they would like to do it. I think there's a lot of countries, you know, would Brazil like to see a Brazilian set of astronauts on the moon speaking Portuguese, inspiring their young people for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math? Absolutely. So I think the countries would have an ambition to do this, not just the moon, but Mars. Okay, and then the idea is that NASA says that they want to go ahead and establish a permanent base on the moon. So it's not just exploration. And if the per seat price is cheap enough, as astronauts go to the moon and they're part of, the international astronauts go to the moon and they're part of a growing permanent base, then I would ask, are they coming back? Do they come back to inspire their students in their countries, or do they stay to be part of a really growing branch of humanity here? And I think countries would probably, if possible, if they sent several people there, would probably split it. Bring some back, leave some there, to represent their country, their people, their culture in a growing branch of human civilization there. Okay? But what about Mars ambitions for the Starship? Well, that's pretty obvious, right? NASA, U.S. government says that they would like to go to Mars. They have sort of long-term plans. If they could get there, I think cheaply and soon, I think they would take advantage of that if the opportunity were to present itself. What I'm saying is that if Starship becomes available, I think right after going to the moon, I think NASA would be interested in going to Mars, doing a public-private program to pull that off. Okay? How about the other countries? Do they want to go to the moon and just stop, or would they like to go to the moon and then go to Mars as well? International exploration. Yeah, I think all sorts of countries would love to see their people on Mars, not just exploring, but settling. Okay, who said this next quote? Let's have a show of hands. Don't blurt it out, just show of hands, okay? Who said this? We'll probably have a base on the moon before going to Mars. Right there. Bezos? No. Your hand. Elon Musk. He actually said this. I don't know if you guys know this. This is Popular Mechanics earlier this year. This is a quote right out of that article. Okay. This is bizarre. We'll probably have a base on the moon before even going to Mars. That doesn't seem right from what he said before, right? Because he has set some deadlines to go ahead and go to Mars, right? 2022 first Mars cargo mission, and then in the next open window, the first Mars cruise mission. Okay, is it going to be these dates? I think there's a lot of skepticism, but hey, if it's 2 or 4 years later, it's still very soon. Earlier than what you would imagine a lunar base would be developed. Okay, so what's the deal with that previous statement by him? Okay, so I'm going to give you a set of numbers that I'd like for you guys to contemplate and really take to heart. All right, what is this number? Nope, not tons. Months between launch windows, exactly. Okay, so this, as the Earth and Mars line up with each other, the window opens up to be able to go ahead and launch. Okay, it doesn't matter how short your round trip is, if it's just short stay, a long stay, or whatever, accelerated, you know, what matters is that the window is going to open up every 26 months. Okay? All right. What's this number? Apollo 11. Yes. This is about the number of days it would take to do a round trip to the moon using the Starship. Okay? Launch up into high elliptical orbit, second freighter or propellant, what do you call it, tanker, goes up to that orbit, they dock, they transfer propellant, 2 or 3 more days to the moon, land on the moon, go ahead and discharge the passengers or the payload, no refueling on the moon, it immediately fires, comes back, re-enters, okay, travel back 3 days, re-enter, got a couple days to go ahead and kick the tires, check the oil, get more passengers, go ahead and refuel and launch again. Okay, I don't know, 11, maybe 14 days, but the point is, it's far less than 26 months, okay? How about this number? 72. Yes. I'm not going to ask any questions anymore. I'm just going to tell you what 72 is. Hey, yeah, that's right. Well, he said it's the last time, 1972, that we went to the moon, you know, when they stepped off the moon. Okay, 72, this is the most important number. 72 is the number of round trips that you can go to the moon on one Starship for every round trip to Mars. Okay, 72. If you do the math, you can figure this out. And again, that's based. He might be able to go soon. He might be able to do something, fly by to Venus and go ahead and get back early. But then he's got to wait until the next window opens. Okay, you can use it to do multiple trips to go to the moon, and then you tie it up. Okay, so here's the next number, 72 again. What is this? This is the number of tickets that SpaceX could sell if the Starship is being used to do round trips to the moon for every ticket sold for round trips to Mars. Okay. So think about it. There's a huge financial aspect to this. Okay. How about this number? Okay. 72. Conceivably, it is the rate of growth of a permanent base on the moon compared with for the same size fleet of starships as growth on Mars. Okay. So the question is the Starship a moon rocket or is a Mars rocket? Okay. So we spoke about governments and who wants to go to the moon, who wants to go to Mars. Governments, they want to go to both, I would imagine. How about private settlers? Okay. To be a private settler, you need to have enough money to purchase the ticket and the money to live there, okay, wherever there is, okay? And then you also need to be freed from child rearing responsibilities, at least in the early years, okay, before we do the artificial gravity prescription. You also need to be freed up from occupational responsibilities, or at least most of the occupational responsibilities. You can do some telecommuting, but that's not everybody's job, right? So who are these people? To a large degree, they're retirees. Retirees have lived long enough to save up money, right? You're freed from child rearing responsibilities. Your children have flown the coop, and you're retired. You're not working. Retirees aren't going to be 100%, but they're definitely going to be overrepresented by a very large degree, I believe. Okay, so bear that in mind. But what do we know about retirees? What do we know about grandmothers and their relationship with grandchildren? They want to be in touch with their grandkids, right? This factors in, okay? So from the moon with 3-second time delay, you can do the following things. You can be telepresent and interactively so at your holidays, at your grandkids' graduation, at your grandkids' wedding, and God forbid if somebody, a loved one, were to be in the hospital for some reason, you could be telepresent there. To go to Mars, you gotta make those cuts, right? It's 14 minutes on average. You can send video emails, but you can't really be interactive. And so there is this important issue that I think is going to affect the thoughts and opinions of especially the spouse of those who want to go ahead and move off Earth, right? So travel time, and I'm going to, for the sake of discussion, I'm going to go ahead and speed up. Don't get me wrong, there is going to be exploration of Mars and there's going to be settlement of Mars, especially internationally, but the question is what can be done to get the private settlers to favor Mars over the moon, okay? I think how it's probably going to play out, I think more than likely Starship is going to become a reality, and there's going to be sort of early and accelerated development of the moon, and simultaneously I think some ships are going to reserve for going to Mars, even though they're being tied up for that. But we don't want to see something like this, where you have the lunar growth curve being like 72 times steeper than the Mars growth. So how can this be done? All right. So what can we do to increase the settlement of Mars? I think having a bulk of international astronauts, they don't care about travel times and confinement and stuff like that. You know, they're being selected from the most motivated people, okay? For the travel time, I think there's things that can be done to help the rather lengthy, even if you're at 3 months or 4 months transit to Mars, you're going to need to do a lot of things to be able to make it attractive for people to choose that over a 3-day trip to Mars, to the moon, okay? The round trip, I think you have to almost set aside, even though it's sort of making less money, I think you overproduce starships and you create a fleet that's specifically for Mars to try to increase the number of people that go there. And if you can subsidize it, like through Starlink, subsidize the tickets, so that's actually cheaper to go to Mars, even though there's fewer of you in the Starship, because you need to take up room, you have your provisions for the transit. That if it's cheaper, that may make the difference, because customers are very price sensitive on the low side. Family distance, boy, this is a bit of a tough one to overcome. Video mail, for what it's worth, subsidized tickets to attract people for that reason. Maybe indentured servants, where people who maybe don't have enough money to go to either the moon or Mars, they could go to Mars and then they work for the more wealthy people and pay back that loan. Young adults, except the issue of having children, would have to be resolved probably, or transporting whole families so that they are with their families and not separated. But again, that comes down to the artificial gravity prescription. So thank you for your time and your attention, and I guess we open it up for question and answers. Okay, yes. Yeah, actually, he's on the microphone.
Okay, so you may know my voice, but not my face for instance. Wow, I'm Bill Gardner of the Howard Bloom Space Policy Steering Group and the NSS. Okay, so Doug, it seems to me that one of the advantages of Mars, like the colonies were in early America, is its isolation. What do you think?
Isolation is good for what reason? I mean, I agree with you. But
it's good because that way people who want to get away from Earth and establish their own libertarian colony or their own libertarian settlement or their own lifestyle settlement can get away from Earth and be assured that they won't be interrupted or interfered with.
Yeah. On my website, developedspace.info, there's a countries link there. And I go into, I think a logical process is going to be you have an international base, because countries have the deepest pockets of anybody. So that will be the first sort of intermediate phase, and you're going to bring a lot of languages there. And then as older people who maybe can't learn new languages, as they come, you're going to have a Russian section where they speak Russian over here, and you're going to have an Arabic section over here, et cetera. And then those could well go on to say, hey, let's go ahead and, now that we have large enough, let's go ahead and separate it out, create sort of a territory, which could become a country. And I agree, I think libertarians are going to see this as their opportunity, and many other people. So yeah, that is some of the motivation, religious and political motivations that motivated settlement in the past. I think that could happen in the future. Okay, next.
Hi, Doug. Bruce McKenzie here. These are just comments. You said you'd be selling 72 times as many tickets to the moon in the same round trip for Mars. I think it's far worse than that, because the people going to Mars will want more spacious accommodations if they're stuck inside this cabin. So I think you're going to be taking 20 or 30 people to Mars with better accommodations for the trip, and maybe 100 people to the moon. So that really throws your 72 ratio even higher.
I did mention that, thanks.
Okay.
I did mention that. I'm inclined to think, Elon says 100 people, and he's talking about Mars, could fit in the Starship. I don't know how realistic that is. My thought, if you're doing just 3 days to the moon, then you pack more people in, because they can live elbow to elbow 3 days.
Okay. Yeah, and next comment is the moon is not a great place to grow food. And the sunlight is, you have issues of the 14-day night. Carbon and nitrogen will be expensive, for incorporating into the plants, making fertilizer. So I think there'll be a lot of round-trip vacations to the moon with imported food. So people might go for one lunar day, for the 14 days of lunar daylight, or they might go for 2 lunar days and 1 lunar night, and then return to Earth. So even though there's a big transient population on the moon, I don't think there'll be that many people staying.
So, so I did do a presentation yesterday on comparing lunar and Martian greenhouses, and I really went through the whole thing. I believe greenhouses on the moon are entirely doable through several things, because you're bringing up the correct issues. But the thing is that using solar concentrators to produce ISRU, then you don't have to ship those. Pushing regolith on the top of the greenhouse is not an issue, and then you can do 3D growing if you're not using sunlight directly on the plants, but you're putting it in through LEDs. And then the carbon and nitrogen, the L-cross results. There's carbon and nitrogen there. It's a substantial part of the ice. And if you recycle, that's the key thing, then, and if you're producing propellant quantities from the water ice, you're going to be able to produce more than enough organics to be able to sustain the losses from recycling. And I'd be glad to discuss it with you. Next.
Hey, Doug, how do you feel about BFR going directly to the moon, directly to Mars from Leo, as opposed to launching a payload off of it much smaller and then taking the payload to Mars? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understood the very last part of your sentence.
Well, you could either, refill the BFR in Leo and then fly the entire BFR to Mars, or you could leave the BFR in Leo and launch a payload from it and then send the payload to Mars, much smaller. I was just wondering how you feel about that.
Zubrin, can you answer that question, the fellow in the red sweater?
No,
Okay.
I can't, but Bob's talked about a lot about not using the Starship for the actual full voyage, but basically using it to get things up to the low Earth orbit, and then having
Another
cabs.
craft?
Right.
Was that your question? Yeah. So Zubrin had a non-disclosure discussion with SpaceX. Apparently, he can't explain. He brought up this issue. He published it, and apparently he spoke with SpaceX about it, and he didn't get them to change their mind. So I don't know how SpaceX answered his objection. But it seems to me like, yeah, if you can reuse those engines, then you can save a lot of money. If you can bring those engines back, yeah. Question?
Okay, my question, Doug, thanks for the presentation. One of the things that we hear a lot about is this issue of life on Mars. On the one hand, people say we have to go to Mars to find out if there's life there, to find out what our position is in the universe. And we also hear other people saying, though, it's kind of a pain to not be able to go off and explore on Mars because we're worried about all these microorganisms, and that's just a big annoyance, okay? So forget about all these nasty planetary protection guys, okay? Well, I was thinking about it just now, listening to you talk, and it occurred to me that if we really want to get a driving force, as Elon Musk would say, to propel us more people to Mars, to set up those cities, basically all we have to do is discover Mars life. If we discover life on Mars, honest to goodness, life on Mars, we're going to have hundreds or thousands of biologists who are going to want to go there and do their research there for years, okay? And that would basically set up a substantial, get us started, the foothold, the beachhead. The funny part about it is, I suppose, if we don't find it, what should we do? Should we go off and do our Piltdown Man approach, where we fake life on Mars just to get these people to come?
I love it. This is opening up a whole nother issue. I have concerns about planetary protection, not from the technical standpoint. I'm not worried about forward contamination, a little bit worried about back contamination, but not terribly. But forward, you do a DNA analysis, you can find out the history of it. But what I am concerned about is the closer we get to sending people to Mars, I can imagine certain people of the political wing like really bringing this issue to the fore. And I'm not quite sure that there is a way within society that you can answer all those objections, which could be articulated pretty well. I'm not sure how we can really overcome them on a societal basis. And who gives Elon the right to risk my life when I'm living in such and such a country? Don't I have to say what happens to me? You'll have arguments like that, and I'm just concerned the closer we get. It's not an issue for the moon, obviously, but for Mars, I don't know where that's going to go, but I'm nervous. And with that, thank you for your attention.